is the New Black is where we dive in. Every episode we'll discuss, even the scenes that made us cuss. So follow me, join the spree. I try to space for 2 E's. Spoilers everywhere, so be warned. Super fans, please come on board. Susie's special line and all these ideas because we make it everything truly as it is.
Hello and welcome to Yadda Space. I'm Yadda and I'm so glad you're here. This is a rewatch podcast for the Netflix TV show Orange is the New Black. That means that there may be spoilers about things that happen in the future episodes, so please be warned. This is definitely a spoiler zone. On today's episode of our Orange is the New Black rewatch, we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 12, titled It Was the Change. The IMDb synopsis for this episode says, tensions run high as a prison power outage forces several issues to come to light. Also, Piper finds herself compromised and is forced to think on her feet. And we'll be getting some backstories from V today as well. Phil Abraham is back again as the director of this episode. He has directed 11 episodes of Orange from Season 1 all the way through Season 7, the most recent one being Lorna's backstory episode earlier this season, as well as one of my personal favorite upcoming episodes titled I'm the Talking Ass in Season 6. So we will be seeing his work again. We also have Sarah Hess back again as the head writer for this week's episode. We've most recently seen her work on Black Cindy's backstory episode, so we're in good hands this week as well. And as I always say, I know that there's more than one person in a writer's room, so I'd like to give a shout out to the entire writing team. Thank you all for writing such a great show. You guys told the stories that were not being told, and for that, we thank you. The IMDb rating for this episode is an 8.6. But as always, at the end of this pod, I will be giving my personal episode rating for this episode. But I encourage you guys to go ahead and write your episode ratings in the comments as well, so that we can get an idea of what we the people think is actually the rating on this episode. Okay, so let's get into it. When the episode opens up, it is storming. It looks like Superstorm Wanda has hit Litchfield. Red, Frida, and the Golden Girls are in the greenhouse talking about what happened at the end of the last episode when Erica mistakenly stabbed the wrong girl when she was trying to stab V. Apparently, she can't see very well and she doesn't like to wear her glasses because she says that they make her nose look big. But Red is not trying to hear it. She's like, if you want to assassinate someone, vision is a basic requirement. Red goes on to explain that step 1 is pick a person to kill, and step 2 is kill that person. Good point, Red. But even though Erica got the wrong target, she still was sent down to the SHU for a month. And Red is worried because she's like, well, V is obviously going to know that was for her. And so now Red feels like her entire prison family is in danger. Frida thinks they can spin this whole mistake and tell V that that was just a warning shot. You know, to send the message, don't fuck with Red. But Red is not down with that. She's like, we need to talk to V peacefully. Let's have a parlay. To which Frida's like, a parlay? What are we, pirates? But Red quickly points out, well, you do have an octopus tattoo. Back inside the prison in a blink if you miss it scene, we see Caputo gathering buckets because apparently the last time they had a big storm, there were leaks in a bunch of different parts of the prison. And while there were patches done to the roof, he's not very confident that they're going to hold. You know Litchfield, always cutting corners. The funny thing is, while he's in the utility closet, he finds and picks up and quickly discards a used condom. You know, a little bit of evidence of what that room is actually used for. Lots of screwing around. We know we've seen Daya in there a few times. Over in the library, we see Poussey drinking a little bit of her hooch. I'm assuming to numb the pain, either physically from that beatdown from Suzanne or just emotionally because of what's been going on with her and her girls. Either way, I don't like to see it. When Poussey notices that Janae is still dealing drugs out of the library, she's like, you didn't learn your lesson yet? Which, valid. I mean, Janae already got caught with the cigarettes in her bunk area, got sent down to the SHU for it. And so now that she's back, she's still dealing? Not good choices. But apparently Janae doesn't see it that way. She doesn't feel like her going down to the SHU was V's fault. To Janae, the reason she got sent down to the SHU was because the system was coming down on her just like it's done time and time again. You know Janae, with her chip on her shoulder. And it's not to say that the system doesn't come down on them in certain ways, but let's not excuse V's involvement with this. Janae tells Poussey that something's gonna fuck you, you know? Whether it's the system, the man, or V. And to Janae, at least V gives you back 10%. I mean, I guess. She's entitled to her point of view. Elsewhere in the prison, we see Morello checking on Piper, who is kind of out of it. Apparently word's gotten around that Piper's on that transfer list. Piper's already checked in with her lawyer, but there's nothing that can be done. Apparently transfers like this happen all the time. But Piper doesn't see it that way. She's like, no, this is Fig fucking with me personally. According to Piper, Fig has hated her ever since Larry's radio show interview. Remember back in season 1? Piper says the worst part of this whole transfer business is the fact that it seems like her family is happy about it. Like they get to have their weekends back and they don't have to worry about coming to visit her anymore. Piper tells Morello that her mother says, well, you only got 8 months left. It's not like it's forever. So there's a little piece of the timeline. Here in season 2, Piper apparently only has 8 months left. Although as we know, she doesn't get out until the end of season 6. So while I know season 5 is only a couple of days long, this definitely shows that they did not really follow the timeline much in this show. Morello tells Piper 8 months does feel like forever. She says it seems like the less time you got, the slower it goes. Before Morello heads out, Piper stops her and tells her that she was the first person who was nice to her when she got there. Piper was scared, but Morello made her feel like it was going to be okay. And Morello seems like she was really touched by that comment. She even tells Piper that, you know what, she's going to remember that on her bad days before she turns and heads on out of the room. Wow, so they are really having Piper go and make her little final goodbyes like she's really leaving. But as we know, she's not going anywhere, but we'll get there. In a quick little blink if you miss it scene, we see Gina hand V a black flag over at commissary, telling her that it's the international symbol for parlay. And even V is like, what are we, pirates? But no, it's simply an invitation for V to come meet up with them at the greenhouse after work today. So we'll stick a pin in that and get back to that later. Over in the storage room, we see Poussey looking through things to try to find V's stash, and she finds a box full of tobacco. And so Poussey takes them out one by one and starts stomping all over them. Poussey is determined to stop whatever V's got going on by any means necessary. Once she's done stopping all over the cans, she finds some bleach and pours it out all over the tobacco that's on the floor, making sure that it's destroyed. And when she's done, she says, fuck you, I guess to V, who is not there, but you know, figuratively. And she looks very satisfied with herself. And honestly, I gotta say, I love her heart. It's very dangerous what she's doing. Clearly, messing with V, messing with her stash, messing with her money. Yeah, that's dangerous business. But I love Poussey's determination to try to do what's right. Try to save her girls. That girl's got heart. In a quick little scene over in Fig's office, we see her meeting with an accountant who's going over her books, her accounting books. And he sees some discrepancies with what's being paid out for plumbing. A couple of things are raising some red flags for him, and it seems like there's been some double dipping happening. But once Fig realizes that he's onto her and what she's been doing with that money, she decides to go ahead and basically bribe him, offering him a ticket to one of her husband's fundraiser dinners. She knows that the accountant is a Giants fan because he's wearing some New York Giants socks. So she mentions that one of the players is going to be at the dinner, you know, just to sweeten the deal. And the accountant is so excited to hear that it seems like Fig's little bribe plan worked. Over in the kitchen, we get a little Daya and Bennett moment. Bennett is still trying to get Daya's attention and she is still trying to ignore him. But he's like, you cannot ignore me forever. And so that's when Daya tells Bennett that he moved. And Bennett's like, he who? Daya's referring to the baby. She's starting to feel him move around now. And that gets Bennett so excited, and it even seems to warm up Daya to him a little bit. They start talking amongst each other like a real couple of expectant parents. Bennett shares that he always pictured himself having a boy, and Daya shares a little old wives' tales that make her feel like she's having a boy. Bennett wants to name the baby Frank, but Daya is not feeling it. She's like a hot dog. And then she goes on to say, well, you know, it could be a girl. And Bennett doesn't look disappointed at the thought of that either. He still looks very much excited. They both do. This would be really sweet if they weren't in the positions that they're in. Back over in the storage room, we see V cleaning up Poussey's mess, you know, with destroying the tobacco and all. When Taystee comes in, V's like, I thought you said she wasn't going to be a problem. And when Taystee asks V, how does she even know that it was Poussey? V's like, a child does childish things. And she's pretty upset because Poussey cost her money. I told you, Poussey's messing with her money, and that's dangerous. In this moment, V is blaming Taystee, because in the last episode, Taystee said that she was going to be responsible for whatever Poussey is up to, and now that Poussey has done this, V's like, who's going to pay me back? You? Do you think that she would even be doing this if it wasn't for you? Damn. I mean, she probably wouldn't be, but I don't think that's on Taystee. If anything, V, you got no one to blame but yourself. But since we know V is not going to take any accountability for herself, she's solid on the fact that this is Taystee's fault. And so her solution is, Taystee can't be a part of the business anymore. I guess she figures if Taystee's not a part of it, Poussey has no reason to interfere. V even goes as far as to have Taystee start to question her friendship with Poussey, telling Taystee that Poussey would rather have you go down to the shoe than to see you working for me. Because in her opinion, if a CEO had come in there, they'd all would have went down for this. Meaning Taystee would have went to the shoe, and it would have been Poussey's fault. Taystee seems to be really hurt by V shutting her out like this. She's like, you said you were going to protect me. But V does not seem to care. She's like, I guess I'll see you around. Because as we know, and as we'll see in her backstories today, when V's back is against the wall, she will turn on anybody to save her own ass. Which leads us into our first V backstory scene. It looks like a time when Taystee is an older teenager and she's living with V acting almost like a den mother to her and RJ and apparently another teen that's with them. Because as we know, V loves to run with kids. They're getting ready to have some pizzas and V is complaining about being so hot to the point where Taystee's like, are you sure you're not sick? But the third teen that's there with them is named Trance. Trance tells V, no, she's not sick. She's just old. It looks like she's going through the same thing my aunt went through. She was always yelling and sweating. She couldn't remember anything. And it turns out it was the change, giving us our episode title for the week. And the change in question is menopause. And V's like, oh my God, I'm too young for that shit. We find out here that at this time, V is 50 years old and she is having a complete breakdown about her life choices. She's like, she should have done more with her life. So as V is spiraling, RJ comes and sits down beside her, trying to calm her down. He's older than when we last saw him, definitely an older teen, or maybe in his low 20s. But at any rate, he sits down next to V, trying to comfort her, telling her she just needs a good night's sleep and then maybe she'll feel better. And then he tries to reassure her with a little bit of flattery, talking about he doesn't even believe that she's 50. And RJ goes on to tell V that she's still as fine as the first day that he met her, which disgusting, because if we remember, V practically raised him. And the fact that he's got his hand on her knee as he's saying this crap to her, I'm not a fan. It's very inappropriate and kind of grosses me out. It seems like RJ understands the dynamic because he goes on to tell V that if she wasn't practically his mom, he doesn't know what might happen. Which, bro, so you acknowledge that she's practically your mom and yet you still have these I don't know what might happen feelings for her? That's disgusting to me. I'm sorry. Inappropriate. V laughs it off and tells him to stop playing, but as he walks away from the couch, she's looking at him like he's a piece of meat. Disgusting. Back at the prison, it turns out that Maria is also on the prison transfer list, which means she's not going to be able to see her daughter as much, and she is having a full-on breakdown about that. I don't blame her. We know that Maria loves her baby girl so very much, and this is breaking her heart. She tells Yadriel how important it is that he talks to her. Babies need that kind of stimulation, and since she's not going to be able to see her as often, he has to be the one to give it to her. Maria tells him, I know you don't like to talk, but you have to do it for her. A lot can be said about Maria and her choices in this show, but her relationship with her daughter, I think, is really beautiful. In the next scene, we're with Fig at her house, I guess, because it looks like her and her husband just got finished trying to make a baby. She's got her legs up the wall talking about it helps with conception. Their little pillow talk doesn't last long, though, because next thing we know, Fig is telling her husband that Hoffman, the accountant, is on to them. And she tells her husband that she doesn't want to do this anymore. I guess all the money laundering and illegal nonsense that they've been up to. But her husband is not trying to hear it. He tells Fig that you gotta play dirty if you want to win. He seems to only be concerned about his political career. If Fig gets caught and her career goes down the drain, doesn't seem to be on his radar. He basically puts Fig down, talking about, listen, you're just an assistant warden at the prison. I'm talking about the Senate. Damn. Tell us how you really feel. I think assistant warden is a pretty damn big job, but unfortunately, Fig's husband doesn't seem to see it that way. Back at the prison in a blink if you miss it scene, we're in the bathroom with DeMarco when the toilets start overflowing. So it looks like Superstorm Wanda and all of its consequences have officially hit the prison. In the next scene, we're with Red and the Golden Girls in the greenhouse, and V has come to parlay. When V calls Red pathetic for sending an old fool to do what Red is afraid to do, that's when Red decides to change up her little peaceful strategy. She looks over to Frida and goes along with her plan. She tells V that that's exactly what Erica was supposed to do. It was a warning shot. Red tells V, you fuck with me, I fuck back. V tells Red that it looks like she's looking for a war, but she made the mistake of messing up her first shot. But Frida backs Red up like, listen, if Red wanted you dead, you'd be dead. And to that, Suzanne's like, yo, you want to go? As she gets in her little fighting stance. That's when V tells Red that she was planning on sharing the greenhouse with her, but now her feelings are hurt, so she's just gonna take it. But Red acts completely unfazed, telling V, you know what, fine, have it, enjoy it. But good luck to you and your people finding the other end of the tunnel entrance. It's in the woods in the middle of nowhere. So, good luck with that. But V is unfazed by Red's verbal sparring. She goes for a low blow and asks Red, how's her son? And calls him by name, Yuri. And Red looks shook. V lets Red know that there's only one Yuri Resnikov within a 2-hour radius of Litchfield. But when Red attempts to call her bluff, telling her she's full of shit, V shows her that she is not. And she recites his address and describes the way his house looks. Greenhouse with white trim. At that point, an alarm starts going off in the prison, I'm assuming because of the storm. But Red does not care. She gets right up in V's face and tells her, if you touch my son, I'll touch you. That's the Mama Bear Red that we know. But V very quickly reminds Red of the last time she fucked with her. Back in the day in that flashback that we saw, when V had her girls go beat up Red in her own kitchen, leaving Red with broken ribs and a punctured lung. V even goes on to mock how Red could hardly breathe. I mean, V is being absolutely horribly disgusting here. And Red asks her, are you proud of that? We were friends. But V tells her quickly, we were never friends. And that's true. We saw how V manipulated her, gained her trust, made her think they were friends, but she never had any intention of being Red's friend. She only wanted Red for what Red could do for her. Freaking vampire. And with that, Red spits directly in V's face. Also disgusting, don't like spitting, but I get it. V doesn't immediately retaliate, but she does tell Red, you're gonna regret that. That's when a guard comes into the greenhouse and finds all the ladies on the floor. And he's like, what are y'all doing on the ground? This is not the lie down on the ground alarm. That's the weather-related emergency alarm. Like, get up. Before he escorts them all back to the main building. That brings us to our next V flashback where we see her in her kitchen with an NYPD police officer. She's having friendly conversation and asking him about his wife and kid as she prepares some kickback money to give to him. So we see here that V, while she's doing drugs and illegal things in the city, she's got an in with the police and it looks like she's paying them well enough that they will look the other way. This police officer confirms that not only will they tip her off to when there's trouble, but they will also round up, aka get rid of her competition, send them to jail while she gets to run the drug game in the area. I mean, that sounds like a big old operation they got going on there. Very illegal. After the police officer gets his money and he's on his way out the door, he stops and tells me that they busted some supply guys across the bridge. And apparently they got a hold of their drop-off list, whoever they were going to supply those drugs to. And guess who was on their list? Her boy, RJ. So it looks like he was about to go out on his own, have his own little venture going and cut V out of the deal. And V does not like that. To be honest, initially, she looks more hurt than angry. But don't worry, the anger is coming, and we'll get there. Back at the prison due to the Superstorm Wanda flooding, it looks like they're having all the inmates move their bedding up to higher ground. They're all picking out spots in the cafeteria and the rec room area. We see that Taystee has set up an area for her and her girls, but when Cindy and Janae walk in, they do not join Taystee. They see her, but instead of joining her, they walk the other way. So it looks like they've already gotten their marching orders from V. Taystee is no longer in their prison family. Elsewhere in the prison, we're in the basement somewhere with Luschek, Nikki, and Piper. As we know, Nikki and Piper are both on the electric crew for their prison job, and Luschek oversees that, so he's down there too. The only problem is, right now, because of the storm, the water in the basement is literally up to their waists. And also, they don't know anything about fixing tanks and pumps, but they're down here at any rate. When Nikki opens the first tank, she's like, yo, there's not even any fuel in here. It's empty. Which means somebody didn't order any fuel for the tanks, which means now they have nothing to run their generator. And Piper immediately calls it out like, this is Fig again, isn't it? Yeah. She runs the budget, it looks like, and I guess the fuel for the tanks that run the generator were not that important to her. And as if right on cue, the lights cut out. They now have no power at Litchfield. Nikki's like, what are we gonna do now? And Luschek immediately responds, threesome? That's a little bit of foreshadowing of something that will be in his future, but we'll get there. Elsewhere, we're at Fig's husband's fundraiser, and we see that Tiki Barber, indeed a player on the New York Giants, is there signing footballs. And the accountant who was at Litchfield is also there, very much excited. Elsewhere in the party, we see Fig very much holding court, talking up her man, trying to get the funds in to get him elected. But she's also being very much fake and very happy to be pulled away by his assistant, who tells her that Joe Caputo has called her again. Because yeah, there's problems at the prison while you're over here gallivanting for your husband. There's an actual emergency going on. Back at the prison, we see Red and her girls into the cafeteria/rec room area where everybody's kind of setting up for the night, and she sees where V and her girls have set up, and decides to walk the other way. Good move. Red thinks the spot that she picked out for them to set up camp for the night is a good one because at least there's a barrier between her and V and they can all see each other, so no surprises. Yoga Jones is skeptical that V would even try something tonight with all these people around, but Red is like, V is not a sane person, and she insists that her and her girls sleep in shifts so that somebody's always watching V. I mean, I don't think that's a bad move. Having eyes on V is definitely a good idea. As we move over by V and her crew, we see Cindy saying, we're supposed to be fighting those girls? Like, that must be some kind of joke, right? But V insists that Red is not a fighter. She's a schemer. She'll make a move and it'll take them a whole week to figure out what she's done. So V tells her girls to keep their eyes open and not talk to anyone who isn't them. So I guess that includes Taystee. That's when a guard comes in and informs the ladies that due to the storm, there is now no working plumbing in the prison. And so if they need to do their business, they need to go in a bucket. And that is not well received. And I don't blame them. I mean, that's 200 women going in what, 4 or 5 buckets? That's disgusting. The guard goes on to tell them that once they do their business, they need to put the lid back on their bucket. And whoever's the last to use the bucket once it's reached half full needs to go dump it outside and bring it back. Gross. That's when DeMarco asks, well, what if we have to do a number 2? And CO Donaldson is like, you don't. Keep it clenched, ladies. Horrible. It's gonna be a rough night here in the prison. We get a quick glance over at Poussey, who's reading off by herself. She looks up and she sees that Taystee's also by herself, but they don't talk. Not yet. When we get over by So-So, she's absolutely loving this whole communal thing. She's like, OMG, we should have a sing-along. Girl, this is not literally camp. But So-So can't help herself, and so she tries to get a sing-along going by singing Bitch by Meredith Brooks. And although we don't see it, we hear a couple of voices start to join her, so I guess she's not alone. I mean, they don't have much of anything better to do tonight. Over in Mr. Healy's office, we see Tiffany come in asking for snacks. And he's in nice counselor mode because he allows her to come in and gives her some Oreos. He even offers her some water, but she's like, no thanks, I'm trying to avoid this whole bucket situation. Tiffany goes on to ask Mr. Healy if she can bring back a few of the cookies to her neighbor. She tells him that she's a lesbian, but she's trying to distract her for a minute. Like, what? Are all these women just too much for her right now? I don't think it's a problem, but okay. Mr. Healy's like, a lesbian? Which one? And Tiffany describes Boo as the one with the big stomach and the haircut, to which Mr. Healy says Black, because I believe her real name is Carrie Black. But our girl Tiffany does not get that he's referring to her last name being Black. Tiffany's like, no, she's white. You know you can't say that shit around here. Girl, my girl Tiffany missing those cues. It's okay. It's all right, girl. But once Mr. Healy explains to Tiffany that Black is Boo's last name, he goes on to tell Tiffany that she needs to stay away from her because we know how he feels about lesbians. Dear Lord. Tiffany's like, come on, man. What are you talking about? She's got some pretty cool tattoos. But Mr. Healy simply says, that's how they get you, being all cool. The next thing you know, you're a part of their agenda. Dear Lord. I have to say, I really hate seeing Mr. Healy's homophobia continuing here, but it's nice to see that Tiffany is starting to change her tune a bit. I see your growth inch by inch. Go ahead, girl. But Mr. Healy, still up on his soapbox, hands Tiffany a book called The End of Men. Apparently, it's about how pretty soon men are going to become irrelevant. Lord. And Healy starts to spiral with a whole bunch of women-hating nonsense, talking about how women make more than men and how they're going to take over the world, how there will be no need for men in the future, especially since we as women can make our own babies out of tubes. Dear Lord. Again, I say Mr. Healy is a counselor who needs some counseling himself. Clearly. And Tiffany makes a very interesting point to Mr. Healy, telling him that men being in charge has never done her any good. Word. No lies detected. But that's when Mr. Healy decides to throw his little act of kindness in her face, talking about, well, aren't you eating free cookies right now? And then Mr. Healy goes on to tell her that she should think about that before she starts getting any ideas. Lord. Act of kindness my ass. Back over in the cafeteria, it looks like So-So definitely got the karaoke sing-along going. And so now a bunch of the ladies are singing a song called Stay by Lisa Loeb. I mean, it's like a sleepover at this point. Well, for the most part. We also see V trying to intimidate Red from the other side of the fence, which leads us into another V flashback. This time, it looks like we're at RJ's apartment and V is knocking on the door. She tells him that she's been hearing some really troubling stuff about him on the street. And as she comes in his apartment, she starts clocking all the new stuff that he has. Apparently, he's been doing pretty well for himself. And she's confused because she's like, I don't give you this kind of money. So like, where are you getting it from? RJ tells V that he has a friend who helps him out. But V is like, listen, I hear that you're going into business for yourself and with my customers in my areas. basically taking money off V's table. RJ tells V that he's been working for her for a long time. This is where we find out that she took him out of foster care and raised him from a young kid. But RJ quickly reminds V that he's grown now and he wants to go out on his own. And V doesn't like that very much because she starts knocking him with her purse, talking about how he's stepping all over her turf. RJ gets her to stop and apologizes, telling him that he should have told her, but he was scared. And then he offers to give V a percentage. And so V's face softens up and she eventually says, okay, telling RJ that he always was her favorite ever since he was a little boy. As she looks at him with these bedroom eyes that are so gross, because again, she raised him since he was a little boy. Disgusting. V goes on to tell RJ that he's a man now, a man who loves his mama. Disgusting. Oh my God. Again, looking at him with these bedroom eyes, just disgusting. Ugh. V grabs RJ by the face and kisses him, completely crossing the line considering she's raised this child. And he doesn't hold back. He kisses her back even more aggressively. And unfortunately, they go off to do their thing. Disgusting. Probably my least favorite V storyline. Like, come on. Gross. Back at the prison, we're back in the cafeteria with the ladies, and Piper goes over to Maria to try to comfort her about this whole transfer business. She's like, listen, I'm being transferred too, so at least we'll know each other. But Maria tells her quickly, we don't know each other, which... valid. I don't think they've spoken at all since they've been in here. I don't know. I can't remember an instance. So yeah, they don't really know each other, but at least they know of each other. That's a little bit comforting. Piper asks Maria how much time she has, and this is where we find out that she has 6 years at this point. So we know that she's trying to get out in time for her daughter to not remember her being gone. So with that math, her daughter will be about 5 or 6 years old when she gets out, which isn't too bad. We haven't gotten to her actions of later seasons yet, but we'll get there. But Maria's not feeling too good about her chances of her daughter not remembering this time when she was gone in this moment. She's down the dumps about the fact that by that time, her daughter will be in 1st grade calling some other puta mommy, or that men can't help it. They're weak. But I feel like she's got some nerve here because as we know, her child is not even Yadriel's child because she was weak, I guess, because she was having an affair with the person that got her into this mess in the first place. So to talk about Yadriel possibly fighting some other woman in the next 5 or 6 years is a little bit much. She should be cutting him some slack there and be thankful that he's taking care of her daughter as well as he is. Over in another corner of the cafeteria, we see V and her girls playing F, Marry, Kill, and the options on the table are Caputo, Bennett, and O'Neill. V is quick to say that she'd love to get her a piece of that Bennett. Cindy, on the other hand, said that she'd like to get with Caputo. Apparently, she's a fan of the mustache. She says it tickles in a nice way. Okay. When Taystee sees them over there playing the game, she decides that she wants to join in and comes over and says, okay, I got one. F, Marry, Kill, the Huxtables. Which, by the way, rest in peace, Malcolm Jamal Warner. That was a really sad loss we just had. And I have to say, him and the Huxtables were a huge part of my childhood, like many of yours. So much respect and rest in peace. I hope everything is well with his family, especially his wife and daughter and everyone else who loved him. But back in the land of Litchfield, B and the girls are continuing to shut Taystee out. B tells Taystee that they're kind of busy right now. Like, we're not trying to play with you. Move along. And Taystee's feeling pretty rejected by that. She sounds almost desperate, telling V that she didn't even do nothing. But Suzanne, you know, V's lapdog, tells Taystee they're busy. So Taystee eventually takes her L and walks away. Over in another area of the cafeteria, Daya is starting to have a panic attack. She tells Elena that the air feels funny and she can't breathe. Elena tries her hardest to calm Daya down before the scene shifts over to Caputo, who finally has Fig on the phone. As Caputo is trying to explain to Fig about all the problems that are going on at the prison, like the fact that they're in a blackout and how everyone is peeing in buckets, but Fig is like, the roads are washed out. What exactly do you expect me to do right now? She's got nothing for him and tells him that he's gonna have to ride this shit out and they'll talk about it in the morning. And Caputo's response is that, yeah, they're gonna talk about it all right. They're gonna talk about how her crappy management style has messed him over for the last time. He even insinuates that the only reason that Fig got that job as assistant warden is because she had an inappropriate relationship with the warden as his secretary. But we know Fig is good at putting Caputo in his place. So she tells him that he needs to suck it the fuck up, ride this out, stop crying, and stop calling her before she hangs up on him. Back at the prison, we're back with Daya, who is very much having a panic attack, and her panic attack looks like it's gotten worse. She's basically hyperventilating at this point. Bennett is trying to calm her down by having her visualize something peaceful, but that is not working. That's when CO Donaldson comes over and tells her, get on your feet, Diaz. And at first, everyone's against it. He's like, do you really have to be a dick right now? She's not feeling well. But Donaldson's like, let me cook. Give me a second here. On your feet. CO Donaldson tells Daya to do 20 jumping jacks. And at first Daya's like, I can't. But CO Donaldson gets stern with her and is like, are you defying an officer right now? And so Elena's like, do it. Just do it. So Daya starts counting off her jumping jacks. By the time Daya gets to about 9 or 10 jumping jacks, she starts to calm down and even smiles like, whoa, okay, this is working. This is great. She looks to be very thankful, which I think was actually a really good job by Donaldson in that moment. And it's true, physical activity is shown to help panic attacks, so good for him. I'm glad he was able to be there for Daya in that moment. Over in the kitchen, we see Gloria and her girls making a bunch of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the ladies when Red comes in talking about, can I help? But Gloria's like, listen, it's PB&J, like, I think I got this. But Red can't help herself. She starts micromanaging how they're spreading the jelly, telling Maritza that she's putting it too close to the edges, and if she doesn't even it out, it's gonna leak. Red, she can't help it. That's when Gloria comes over to Red like, okay, what do you want? Red's like, nothing. Well, you know, practically nothing. She wants the keys to the knife cage. It looks like Red wants to have a little something on her in case V gets in her face. But Gloria is reluctant. She's like, okay, if I do that and there's a knife missing, they're gonna come down hard on me. And she's probably not wrong about that. But Red tells Gloria that V is going to kill her. But Gloria doesn't buy it. She's like, in front of the whole prison, come on, you are paranoid. And she might be a little bit, but also V is nothing to play with, so I honestly wouldn't put anything past her, and I don't blame Red for trying to be prepared. When Red realizes that Gloria's not going to give her a knife, she's like, all right, fine, how about a cheese grater, something? That's when Gloria tells Red, you know, you used to be something. Now you've lost your damn mind, which is a line that I kind of hate. It reminds me of what's to come for Red. And honestly, if we think about it, she went down a similar paranoid path before she got to the point of actually starting to lose her mind as well. So this is a really sad foreshadowing to me. Gloria tells Red that V does not need to fight her because she's already won. Damn. Back in the cafeteria, we see Miss Rosa sitting on the floor with her eyes closed, and Morella goes over to her to shake her like, is she alive? Like, is she okay? And Miss Rosa tells her, I'm not dead yet if that's what's bothering you. And then Miss Rosa goes on to tell Morella that it's not the dying that's the bad part. It's the fact that she has to do it here. She tells Morella that the last thing she's gonna see are these assholes. Which is true. Nobody wants to die in prison, which makes this little interaction really, really sweet knowing what we know about Morello and Miss Rosa and her path towards death. But we'll get there. Elsewhere in the cafeteria, we're with Bennett and Daya as she's asking him, well, what's going to happen when her baby's born? And Bennett tells Daya that he'll probably let her mom's family take her. So I guess she's going with Cesar in his mind. But he goes on to tell Daya that he'll go see her sometimes. But Daya's like, and then what? Are you going to tell her about the fact that you're her real daddy, but she can't say anything because everybody thinks that somebody else is her daddy? You know, Mendez, who's sitting in jail right now? It really is a mess they got themselves in. And Bennett sees it now. He's like, I never should have given you that gum, should I? But in this moment, Daya doesn't put it all on him. She's like, we both did a lot of stupid things. You and me. But at this point, it doesn't even matter because now we have to do what's best for our kid. Which, true. As a mom, I'm glad she's thinking with that mindset. But again, she's pushing to Bennett that she wants him to confess, do his time in prison, and then when they're both out, they can have this life together with their child. I mean, I think the first time I watched this show, I probably was on the side of Daya and wanting him to just do quote unquote the right thing. But rewatching it, maybe with eyes that are a little bit older, I can also see Bennett's side. Like, what good is it going to do this baby to have both of her parents in prison? Daya's solution seems more like a fairy tale to me at this point, and the real situation seems really bleak and sad. Daya insists that they're a family, or could be, and this is where she gives Bennett the option that they can be that family, or he can walk away. Daya tells Bennett that she wouldn't even blame him for walking away, that he should go ahead, get a fresh start, and act like this never even happened. Which I have to say, the first time that I saw the show and saw what Bennett's choice was, I was really disappointed in him. But here it is right here. Daya literally tells him that is an option. And spoiler alert, that's the option he takes. But in this moment, Bennett looks downright offended. He says to Daya, you think I'm the kind of man that walks away from my kid? But Daya tells him that he's being dumb. He has a chance to go back in time, act like this whole thing never happened. And if someone gave that chance to her, she would sure as hell be thinking about it before she walks away, leaving him with that to think on. Maybe it was that line from Bennett that had me so disappointed with him the first time I watched, because he acted like he was this noble man who would never walk away from his kid, but that's exactly what he chose to do. So I must have felt like he was a hypocrite, and I cannot stand hypocrites. So maybe that's why I had beef with him. But yeah, in retrospect, I see Daya's point. Him going and getting a fresh start is definitely an option on the table. Elsewhere in the cafeteria, we see two of the guards walking through talking about how the water's now coming up under the library door. And when Poussey overhears this, she's like, but wait, what about the books? Because as we know, Poussey has a soft spot in her heart for those books in that library. And she's concerned that they're going to get ruined. The guards don't seem to care about that until Poussey reminds them that that's worth money. And the warden would probably be pretty upset about that. So it's at that point that the guards allow Poussey to go down there and get the books up on a higher shelf. They also tell her to take a buddy. And who do they choose? Taystee. So finally, Poussey and Taystee are going to have some time alone together to talk. And it's nice that it's going to be in the library, a space that's really loved by the both of them. Out at what looks like to be the loading docks, we see V dumping a bucket of the pee. If we remember, if you fill it up halfway, you have to go take it outside and dump it. So that's what she's out there doing when Red comes up behind her. It looks like Red got some saran wrap from the kitchen and she comes up behind V and starts to strangle her with it. Pretty bold move from Red, I'm not gonna lie. Even V has to say that Red's got more balls than she thought. To which Red says, "Who's pathetic now?" Looks like that one got to Red a little bit. Red gets V down on the ground and starts to strangle her with her bare hands. But as soon as V decides to give up her fight, Red gets off of her. Looks like she can't do it. Red says, "This place is getting to me." And V's like, yeah, you just tried to strangle me with plastic wrap so that you could sell mascara in jail. Like, remember what we're fighting for. It's not that deep. In the end, Red says, you know what, this is stupid. Just take what you want. What do I care? What am I trying to prove? And V seems down with the truth. She tells Red, you know what, you keep yours, I'll keep mine. We got enough hell in here already. Word, y'all need to chill. V reaches out her hand to shake Red's and says, truce. And Red hesitantly reaches hers out as well and agrees, truce. Which is nice on paper, but I swear I would never trust V with anything that she says. But for this moment, a truce sounds good. Back in another V flashback, it looks like we're catching back up with V and RJ post-sex because that's what she does. So as they're laying there, V decides that she needs a popsicle and she asks RJ to go out and get it for her. But as soon as he leaves, she turns over and grabs her phone, presumably to tip off her cop friend to let him know exactly where RJ's gonna be right now. The next thing we see, RJ's in the park going off to get that popsicle for V when he runs into V's cop friend. Her cop friend says, "Hey RJ, what's up?" And then tosses him a gun saying catch. And the second that RJ catches it, this cop phones it in on his walkie-talkie talking about he has a runner on the steps at McMullen Park. He describes RJ as an African-American male in his early 20s who's armed and aggressive. That's when RJ realizes this is a setup. He puts the gun down on the ground and puts his hands up in the air like, don't do this. But this cop does not hesitate to shoot RJ twice, point blank. And that's how RJ died. We remember in a previous episode when Taystee was crying after RJ's memorial and V was comforting her like she didn't have shit to do with this. But as we see now, V is the one who set RJ up in one of the most sinister of ways. I don't know how many ways I can say it, but I cannot stand V. She is such a disgusting human. Again, fantastic actress. We gotta always give it up to Miss Lorraine Toussaint because she plays this part amazingly. Give it up to her. But V, disgusting. Back in the prison library, we see Poussey and Taystee picking up the books on the lower shelves up to the higher shelves to try to save them, you know? But I have to say, I don't see any water in this library, so I don't know if it just didn't get over to these shelves yet, but I don't see any water in the library. But here we are, whatever it takes to get our girls together, I guess. Poussey asks Taystee what's V gonna do to her. But Taystee tells her V's not gonna do anything to you. She threw me out, but that's what you wanted, right? Taystee tells Poussey that she wins. Because according to Taystee, Poussey got the only person that's ever looked out for her in her entire life to turn her back on her. To which Poussey responds, fuck you. Because word, Poussey is definitely another person in Taystee's life who has looked out for her. I wish Taystee could see that in this moment, but she is blind right now. Poussey tells Taystee that V is not a good person, but Taystee tells Poussey that she does not care. And according to Taystee, Poussey fucked up her life. And at that point, Poussey's like, you know what? I'm done. And starts to walk away. But Taystee's like, oh, you think you're just gonna walk off now? And so Taystee stops Poussey by pushing her to the ground. And Poussey is on the ground looking just as helpless as she looked when Suzanne was beating her up in the bathroom. And when Taystee realizes what she's done, she breaks down crying and starts apologizing to Poussey. Because word, what are you doing? Poussey is your friend, your truest friend. And Poussey starts crying too, telling Taystee she knows Taystee's sorry. And she pulls her in for a hug, like a true friend would. It's a really sad and really touching scene, honestly. Back in the cafeteria, we see Piper sneak out of the cafeteria right past the sleeping CO Belle as she wanders the hallways with a little flashlight right into Fig's office. What is she there for? Apparently, she's going through files and finds one of the financial files with all the construction contracts. The only problem is once she grabs it, the lights come on in the prison. And she's like, oh shit. She grabs it and tries to book it out of there. But who does she run into in the hallway? Caputo. And he's like, you want to explain? Before the scene cuts. Back over at Fig's husband's campaign fundraiser, we see Fig stumble upon her husband and her husband's campaign manager kissing off in a side room. So there's the confirmation that not only is her husband cheating on her, but he's cheating on her with his male campaign manager. And I have to say, their kissing doesn't seem like this is some little affair. It looks like they might actually be in love, but it's all too much for Fig. And so she just walks off saying nothing. In the very last scene of the episode, we are back at Litchfield, and it looks like it's the next morning. Red is out at the greenhouse, starting to pick up from all the mess that's been left behind from the storm, when V walks in with a sock full of rocks, or something hard in that sock. She comes up behind Red and knocks her upside the back of her head. Because as I said, you never fucking trust V. Of course she didn't mean that, Truce. She was just buying herself some time. And poor Red fell for it. The last thing we see is V knocking Red upside the head with a sock full of rocks, knocking her to the ground and right in her face as we get our orange screen indicating the end of the episode. I mean, damn. I wish Red wasn't so trusting, but here we are. I'm just glad this is a rewatch podcast and we know that Red is going to be okay, but damn. As a reminder, IMDb rated this episode an 8.6, but let me think about my rating for a moment. Well, one of the first things that come to mind when I think of this episode is definitely V's horrible backstory. I mean, what a way to show just what a disgusting character she is. The fact that she's willing to sleep with this boy that she's raised from a child and then set him up to be killed. Because what? Because he tried to compete with her? I mean, just one of the most nasty and disgusting humans I've ever seen on a TV show. She is just awful. But it was definitely good storytelling to show the audience exactly who she was. So by the time the episode ends, we see her backstabbing Red. That's not much of a surprise because we know what kind of person she is. Horrible. I also like that this episode does have that conversation between Daya and Bennett when Daya gives him that out with regard to the baby, saying literally, you can go if you want, get a fresh start, and she won't even be mad. I think it was a really important conversation for their story arc, and it's a nice setup for what's to come. And even though it was a short little scene, I thought it was very cool how Donaldson was able to help Daya out of her panic attack. While I hate the way V kicked Taystee out and the way that she treated her and iced her out of her prison family group, I love the fact that this is the episode that brought Taystee and Poussey back together. Their scene that they had together in the library was very touching and great acting from both actresses, both Samira Wiley, who plays Poussey, and Danielle Brooks, who plays Taystee. Beautiful job, ladies. I also like that little blink if you miss it scene between Morello and Miss Rosa. I think it's a really nice setup for how the season's gonna end. And honestly, for me, the way this season ends, probably one of my favorite endings of all the seasons. Chef's kiss. So with that said, I think I'm gonna give this episode an 8.4. But that's just me. Don't forget to comment your favorite lines from the episode and let me know what your personal rating is for this week's episode. Mine again was an 8.4, but what do you think? I would love to hear yours. The next episode we will be rewatching is the season 2 finale, episode 13, titled We Have Manners, We're Polite. The IMDb synopsis for that episode says, several futures hang in the balance as the inmates face and confront their worst nightmares. Life will never be the same again. Well, damn. That's a pretty epic synopsis. But I can't wait to get into all of that when we revisit season 2, episode 13. We Have Manners, We're Polite next time. As always, thanks for hanging with me in Yadda Space. Just so you know, I've been having such a good time chit-chatting with you guys about Orange is the New Black. I am just a neurospicy lady trying to break out of my shell. Self-promotion does not come easy, but I know it's a must to keep the podcast going. Every time you guys listen to the podcast, you like a post, you comment, or you share a post on social media, you're helping this little podcast to grow. And I can't thank you enough for the love and support. If you've been hanging out in Yadda Space for a while now and you're enjoying the Back to Litchfield podcast, please consider leaving the podcast a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. Also, if you're able and want to go the extra mile, please consider checking out our Patreon. And be sure to follow us on your favorite social media apps for bonus content from the show, as well as updates about the podcast. And if ever you're searching for the pod, remember, it's just like the theme song says, Yadda Space with 2 E's. Thanks again for your continued support. It means so, so very much. I'll catch up with y'all next time here at Yadda Space.
Hey, welcome friends to Yadda Space. I'm Yadda here, let's set the pace. This is a rewatch podcast, so let's begin. Orange is the new black, is where we dive in. Taystee's wisdom sets the tone. Pousey's heart feels like home. Nikki's got that quick one fire. Morello's love of love lifts us higher. Spoilers everywhere, so be warned. Super fast, please come aboard. Susan's special mind, build all these ideas. Because they baby berry beans, chewy as it is. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 oh. Red's kitchen rules the game. Gloria's strength, she keeps the flame. Always hustle, never quits. Looks the towns are gems every bit.